On his day-long visit to India's financial capital of Mumbai, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed top Indian businessmen at the India-Israel Business Summit. Prime Minister Netanyahu hailed the Indian government for its tax reform. He also urged the business leaders to focus on innovation.
Israel is an innovation nation. India is an innovation nation. We must be innovation nations to seize the future. If we don't, we'll fall back. If we do, we'll define the future.
The Israeli Prime Minister began his day with a power breakfast with top Indian businessmen. ICICI Bank CEO Chanda Kochar, Anand Mahindra, among several others, were present at the breakfast table. Later in the day, Benjamin Netanyahu will also meet Moshe Holzberg and his family at the Nariman House in the city. He will also address a meeting with the Jewish community in the city. Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife Sarah will attend a Shalom Bollywood event, among other engagements. According to reports, there may be a one-on-one meeting between Israeli Prime Minister and Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. Joining us for more on this is Owen Alterman, senior international affairs correspondent, I24 News, joining us from Tel Aviv. Good evening, Owen. What's your initial impression of the visit of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu so far? We've seen discussions ranging from various sectors. We're also looking at an event later in the day where the Prime Minister will be interacting with Bollywood celebrities, for example. So this is a relationship which has straddled across several sectors.
Absolutely. The Prime Minister will look at this visit as a tremendous success. The big headline will be, or would be, if that Spike missile deal goes back on track. Of course, it's very, very important to the Israeli defense sector. It is a deal that Israel and India had inked, but India had indicated it wanted to cancel over concerns about self-sufficiency in weapons making and technology transfer. We're now hearing that that deal might be back on track. But you're right. What's striking about this visit is how it goes across so many different areas, whether it be defense, whether it be business ties, and as you just mentioned, cultural ties and people to people. And I think what's so striking for so many Israelis is to see the outpouring of support for the Prime Minister, at least among large segments of the Indian public.
Speaking a little bit more about the Spike anti-tank guided missile deal, Owen, I was about to come to that as well. What does it really mean for Israel if that deal does get back on track?
Well, at the end of the day, I think it means money and jobs. The defense sector is an important part of the economy here. It's not only strategic for Israel geopolitically, it's an important part of the economy. And India is Israel's top buyer of arms, so a very, very important client for Israel. And I think it concerned a lot of people here when that deal seemed to go off track. And I think people will be very, very happy to see it come back on if that's the case. Obviously, there are issues to be dealt with in the defense relationship between the two countries, particularly India's concern over technology transfer and becoming more self-sufficient in its weapons industry and in its weapons making. And while Israel at the same time has need to develop its own defense sector. So that will, I'm sure, continue to be a subject of discussion between the two countries.
Oh, and also what's been another subject of discussion, at least when we look at the bonhomie between the two prime ministers, has been the personal chemistry, Owen. And there's been so much that's been written and said about the personal equation and the chemistry shared by the two leaders every time they come together. And that relationship is for everyone to see every time they come together for an event.
Absolutely, and it's something the Prime Minister comes back to time and time again and has come back to time and time again over the course of this visit. I suspect, though, that when the dust settles, what will be really important to the Israeli political establishment, or if I may say so, what should be really important to the Israeli political establishment, is really embedding the relationship even deeper, focusing on those people-to-people ties, focusing on the business relationships, and making sure that this is a genuine bipartisan relationship and a deep relationship with public opinion of the type Israel has enjoyed for so many decades with the United States. That's what really would cement this relationship and make it sustainable over the long term. To give the Prime Minister credit, he's talked about all of those things too.
Owen, and before we let you go, what over the next few weeks do you say will definitely be a telling sign that India and Israel have come another step closer when it comes to fortifying relationships, and that the relation has taken a huge leap? What to you will be the most immediate indicator of that?
Well, of course, the defense deal that we've talked about so much will be very important. If there's progress, for example, on the cultural front, if we start to see Bollywood movies filming here, that I think would really make headlines here in Israel and really be very welcome. There's also talk of Air India opening direct flights from Tel Aviv to India. Now, again, one of the issues there is overflying Arab countries that don't have diplomatic relations with Israel, that traditionally have not even allowed non-Israeli airlines to overfly. Some talk that might change, will be billed as a gesture to India. But of course, those countries, by all accounts, have improved their connections with Israel over the past number of years. That, I think, also be very, very welcome and help the people-to-people ties. And again, Prime Minister Netanyahu has talked about those direct flights over the course of this trip.
We're going to leave it there for the moment, Owen. Appreciate very much your speaking with us here on World is One News.